Over the last 10 years of teaching clipper cutting, this is the 5 top things that new barbers find intimidating. Where do I start? What if I cut him open? What if the clipper causes discomfort? What if I cut a hole in his head? I keep going too high. My name is Warren and you are watching Mr. Barber. This comes down to 2 things, right? If you're working with a client for the first time, I suggest that you start where they can see it. You start on the side, start a bit low, give them a test patch, and then ask them 2 very important questions. And this is going to make sense a bit later, but ask them these 2 very important questions after you've given them a little test patches. Number 1, is that short enough for you? And number 2, does the clipper cause you any discomfort? The last thing you want is to get to the end of the haircut and the client says, can you go a little bit shorter please? Now you've just wasted your time. So ask those 2 questions. And if you are doing a model, then I suggest you start at the back. This allows you to do a lot more exercise or practice or repetition by creating little lines and then removing those lines. The back of the head will just give you a little bit more space that you can at least do it 2 to 3 times, whereas on the side you can only do it 1 time. And if you're working with a client, you want to start where they can see it, because if you do it on the back, they can't see it. If you start at the top, you can't fix it. So start where they can see it. This comes down to the alignment of the clipper. Sometimes barbers zero gap their clippers. In other words, the moving part of the blade and the stationary part of the blade are overlapping. When the moving part of the blade overlaps the stationary part, you do run the risk of cutting the client open. But always set your clipper slightly to the back. When you are starting, you don't really want to work with a clipper that is zero gap. This may cause a bit of discomfort to your client because the moving part of the blade would then come directly into contact with the skin. So the easy way to test this, once you've aligned your clipper, is to test it on your own skin. If it doesn't cut you, it won't cut them. Thus giving you the confidence that your clipper, when you're working with zero or a zero length, you won't cut the client open. Now remember, in the first example, I said ask those 2 very important questions. And sometimes the clipper does, the blades do get a little bit jammed up. So you want to make sure that number 1, your blades are always clean, and number 2, your blades are always oiled. And brush them off regularly, make them free from hair, thus reducing the risk of the clipper causing any discomfort. So you just want to get that practice in of cleaning your clipper all the time. Don't let the hair get all packed onto that clipper blades and then reducing its ability to move and possibly causing a bit of discomfort to your client. Now this does happen, and as you grow in your career as a barber, it will probably happen less. Ideally, it shouldn't happen at all. So it comes down to sometimes the clipper guards, they do wear out. Most of them are made of plastic, some of them have metal bits infused into it, but they do wear out, and therefore they are easily then detached from the clipper. So what you can do is, just in the way that you hold it, build up some good habits. But when you're holding a clipper in a pistol grip position, then use your trigger finger to hold the guard in place. This means that when the guard falls off, you would be the first one to know. And when you're holding a pencil grip, then use your baby finger, just rest it on the trigger there, as I call it, and then you'll be the first person to know if the guard falls off. So this is just little safety mechanisms that you put in place when you are starting out. Sometimes the clipper guards fit really well, but sometimes they do wear off, and thus detaching themselves quite easily from the clipper. Solutions is that this hand will maintain the client's head position and you introduce the clipper. So now move towards me. Now like aggressively. I'm the first to know. Move towards me now. Patch. just focus on the line that you are trying to remove. Your approach to that line is not to remove it immediately, it's to make it lighter and lighter and lighter until you can't see it anymore. So that should be your approach. Another way to mitigate this risk of going too high is to always start low. Remember, you can always go higher, but you can't come back. So always start low, especially when you're just starting and you're trying to build up the skill to remove that line. Another thing that you could practice is a systematic approach. So instead of you focusing on a blend right from the start, create your different layers. So you have your 0 at the bottom, the next would be a half, or the next would be a 1, and the top may be a 2. Then just focus on removing one line at a time. And I see in the practical part of the class, I would then show you exactly how this is done. Well, my name is Warren, this is Mr. Barber, and I can't wait to meet all of you.